Game 3 of my Rayav Commander Legends draft. So I feel like the first two games were a little bit anticlimactic and not really that indicative of what the format's like. I think this game is a little more exciting. A lot more stuff happens. It's a little more dramatic. So if you've watched all three games so far, thank you for watching. And this one will be a little more lively, I think. So we've got one of my opponents playing the same commander as me, directly across the board at opponent B. So that should make things interesting. Alright, so opening hand looks pretty good. Got both colors, 3 lands. What more can you really ask for, right? And we've got an equipment and a removal spell. We've got a boarding party later in the game. Feeling pretty good about this. So turn 2, just draw a land and run out Rayav right away. Why not? Let's just get on the board and get aggressive. Turn 3, draw another land. Still, that's fine. We got 6 drops we need to play. Get in for 2. Opponent A blocks with his 1/1 and gives everyone a discard trigger. I'm going to discard Squad Captain here. I'm not really going to be curving out this game, so I don't think it's going to be that important. The opposing Rayav player decides to attack me on their turn 3. To be fair, there's no other good attacks, but still I thought we had a kinship, both being Rayav players. Turn 4, draw another land. Now we've got our 6 lands, so we can play our boarding party on time. And I'm just going to equip the Amorphous Axe. We're going to get in for 10 at opponent C. They have a lot of mana over there, so I kind of want to knock them down a peg or two before they get out of hand. So the opposing Rayav player plays Crimson Fleet Commodore, giving themselves the Monarch, and then again attacking me for 2. Again, there are no better attacks, and at least they didn't come across with the Coastline Marauders for an additional 4, so I've got that going for me, I guess. So opponent C just plays Defiant Salvager, and then passes, even though they had 7 mana for their turn. I draw Ancestral Blade, so another equipment, which is nice, with a small creature attached. I'm going to return the favor to the other Rayav player and try and take the Monarch here. They're just going to block with the Coastline Marauders, so that might be why they didn't attack with them, because they have value in the graveyard. So I'm just going to play out Ancestral Blade here, have a 2/2 blocker, as well as leaving Skywhaler Shot up, just in case. Opponent A is going to play Alharu, giving 2 of his creatures plus almost on counters. They're going to attack with Howling Golem, giving everybody a card, which is nice. And they do connect with opponent B and take the Monarch, draw themselves even more cards. So opponent C plays some more Mana Acceleration and Core Cartographer, getting themselves a Plains, and then just passes the turn. So at end of turn, I'm going to use Skywhaler's Shot on opponent A's Alharu, just because it seems like a pretty big threat and I want to use my mana. In hindsight, maybe I should have left it up for the Crimson Commodore, in case it gets equipped and starts attacking. And I'm going to play my own Alharu. I'm just going to get very aggressive here and send both my double strikers over at opponent A to take the Monarch. Then opponent B is going to take out my Rayav and a turn with their own Skywhaler Shot. Alright, opponent A plays one of their partner commanders, Tevesh Szat, pretty powerful Planeswalker with partner for some reason, and they can just make tokens right away, and they're going to get revenge for their Alharu by killing mine, which I guess is fair enough. And then after all that, opponent B is going to come across with a 6-power, double-striking, trampling, a Crimson Fleet Commodore. To be fair, I did this to people last game, but after having 2 of my creatures destroyed, it feels like I'm getting ganged up on a little bit. Time to start being a little more conservative as I go down to 24. Opponent C just takes the Monarch from opponent B in that last turn and plays an Armix. I draw my own Core Cartographer. So I'm going to play Boarding Party here, cascading into Benevolent Blessing. That's just going to go on my flyer. Now, the thing I'm worried about here alright, since 2 out of 3 of my opponents, all 3 of my opponents are playing white, but 2 of my opponents are playing black as well, and I'm more worried about black removal spells taking out my Spirit than I am about, say, getting Oblivion Ringed or some other similar effect. So I'm going to go with black here. And also, with the pro black, I can continuously block opponent C's commander, which is kind of a scary thing for me at the moment. And now that I have a flyer that can kind of attack with almost impunity, there's no other flyers on the board yet. So I can kind of poke whoever has the Monarch and take that back. Keep my hand nice and full. So opponent B goes to attack Tevesh Szat, their giant double strike trampler. The rest of us are very thankful for him targeting the Planeswalker. And opponent A is going to use Dispeller's Capsule. Since Crimson Fleet Commodore has already been declared as an attacker, it's still going to get the double striking trigger from Rayav, because Rayav only cares if it has the equipment when it starts attacking, as well as it's going to get the counter from Armory of Iroas, because that trigger is already on the stack as well. Opponent B just adds another Howling Golem to the board. So opponent C is going to play their commander, Lisa, Shroud of Dusk, which is pretty scary for me, seeing as I'm at a pretty low life total. So Lisa's a 5/5 flying lifelink, and whenever any player casts a spell, they lose 2 life. So that adds up really fast, and I'm definitely going to be paying a price here, as you'll see. And they're going to attach their Hero's Blade to it because it's a free equip if the legendary creature comes into play under your control. So pretty powerful. 8 power flying lifelinker while everyone's losing life from casting their spells. I managed to survive a round with the Monarch. I think people took pity on me after kind of mudhole stomping me into the ground the last round or 2. So I draw land. I'm just going to run out Core Cartographer, taking 2 from Lisa, or Lysa. I'm not sure which is the correct pronunciation. And then I'm going to cast Bell Borca as well. Now, Bell Borca is pretty great. So Bell Borca has 0 power, but it has the ability that Bell Borca's power is equal to the greatest number noted for it in a single turn. And at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Also, it says, note the converted mana cost of each card as it's put into exile. So it doesn't necessarily only count my own cards put in exile. Say I were to Oblivion Ring an opponent's creature and it was a large converted mana cost, then Bell Borca's power would become that. So that's pretty sweet. Also, you can play the card you exile each turn, which is effectively giving you a free extra card every turn. So that combined with Monarch means I'm drawing the equivalent of 3 cards a turn, which is pretty powerful. And then I just pass the turn because I'm afraid of everyone. So opponent B draws and plays Amorphous Axe, so another equipment for their Rayav, and then they're going to come and get Monarch from me. So I'm going to take another 2 damage, which is a bit risky, but also I don't want to become a target, so I just give it up. Also, I've got Bell Borca giving me an extra card a turn, so I'm not incredibly worried about Monarch at this point. I am worried about my life total. I figure you gotta make a small sacrifice up front for long-term gain, hopefully. And it looks like they have another equipment. And then when opponent C taps out to make a token at the end of opponent B's turn, opponent B is going to Soul's Fire, having the Crimson Fleet Commodore deal 6 to the Lysa. So that's a bit of a weight off of everyone's shoulders. Mostly me. Definitely feel good about giving up that Monarch now. Opponent C is going to get revenge for their commander getting taken out by killing the opponent B's Crimson Fleet Commodore, and they're going to take the Monarch from them. And then they're going to play Rakshasa Debaser, which is an absolutely absurd magic card. So it's a 6 mana 6/6 that when it attacks, it puts a creature from defending player's graveyard onto the battlefield. Just that's it. Not till end of turn. It's not like tapped or anything. It's just on the battlefield, and it's theirs. And on top of that, it has Encore for a lot of mana, but still attacking with 3 copies of this is just absurd. So on my turn, I draw Slash the Ranks, which is definitely nice to see. And I've exiled a Court Street Denizen. So I play these out of order. I should have played the Hero's Blade first and then played a Rayav and equipped the Rayav for free. Instead, I just don't get the equip on the Hero's Blade this turn, but I do play the Court Street Denizen because it's free and it'll go away at the end of turn if I don't, and then I'm not using a card out of my hand. So I decided to go for the Monarch as well. Just getting really greedy. I just want to feel like I'm doing something and not just passing every turn. I am a Boros deck after all. So opponent A comes in pretty clutch with the Faith's Fetters on that Rakshasa Debaser, so we don't have to deal with that at least not right away. So shout out to them. So opponent B is going to send their Howling Golem, their equipped Howling Golem, over to opponent A, and opponent A is just going to let it through, which I think was a misclick, because they've got some 0/1 tokens they could easily just throw in front, and they end up taking 6 here for basically no reason. So that's unfortunate. Opponent C is going to replay their Lysa. They do have to pay 2 life to do that, which is, it's not nothing. Myself being at a lower life total, that's very scary. And then they're going to send Armix at me, killing Rayav by discarding a card. And I'm just going to trade with my Core Cartographer. But they followed up with a second Armix. Okay, my turn. I exile a land with Bell Borca, which is fine, because I can just play the land. It's free real estate. So I'm going to replay Rayav, equipping the Hero's Blade this time. And I tap opponent C's commander. Just in the hopes that somebody else will attack him. And I'm not gonna go anywhere though. I'm just gonna protect the Monarch for now and leave my Protection from Black Spirit token back. At this point, I'm pretty glad I put the Benevolent Blessing on that Spirit token and chose black, because Armix can't target it as well as it can block the Lysa. So opponent B is gonna equip up their Champion of Flame, making it very large. And they're going to attack opponent A for some reason here. But opponent A is just going to take it out with a Ghastly Demise. Also, at the end of opponent A's turn, they're going to use Welding Sparks to take out the Lysa again, thankfully. And then come across at opponent A. Personally, I'm definitely a lot more afraid of opponent C than the other two. But that's probably just because of my low life total and opponent C's commander. I guess they didn't want to feel like they were piling on to opponent C. Okay, so opponent C is going to cast Slaughter the Strong, which I'm honestly pretty happy to see. That means everybody has to sacrifice down till they only have 4 total power among creatures they control. And because I have Belborca, that's free. I just get to keep that, as well as whatever other 4 power that I want. So I decided to keep my Court Street Denizen and my 2/2 Soldier, rather than keeping just the 1 spirit. Opponent A gets a bunch of Alharu triggers and essentially loses nothing. In fact, they gain a few flyers, which is arguably better than what they had. And opponent B is just left with their Rayav. And then opponent C replays their commander for the 3rd time. I exile Kanji's Lieutenant with Belborca, and I'm just going to go ahead and run that out right away, tapping down opponent C's commander again, hoping that someone else attacks over there. And I did draw Benevolent Blessing, which is really nice. I'm definitely going to be keeping that up for as long as possible. That's going to save me from taking damage from opponent C's commander. I just equip up my Kanji's Lieutenant in the hopes that I could possibly trade for Lysa, I think. In hindsight, I feel like I should have just played the 2nd Lieutenant, made myself a real threat. And I've drawn so many cards this game and over the past couple turns that I do have to discard the hand size. Little humble brag there. Opponent A replays their Tevesh Zot, sacrificing one of their creatures to draw 2 cards. Very powerful for a plus ability at that. Opponent A takes a little bit of advantage of the window I gave them into attacking opponent C. Opponent B draws and plays Haunted Cloak, which is really important because it gives the equipped creature Trample, Vigilance, and Haste, which are all 3 very significant keywords when you've got giant creatures that are getting double strike when they attack. Because, Vigilance lets you keep them back as a blocker as well as attack, and the Trample means that chump blocking doesn't really do much. And Haste means if you draw a creature, you can immediately attack with it. So this is pretty scary. And then they are going to attack opponent C with their Howling Golem, drawing everybody a card. So opponent C gets to untap with their commander for the 1st time, I believe. So that's probably not great news. And then they're going to encore their Rakshasa Debaser. So that's pretty scary. Again, so that means that each one of the tokens is going to attack each one of his opponents, and they're going to get a creature back from each one of our graveyards. So opponent C attacks, and then in response to the Rakshasa triggers, I'm just going to Benevolent Blessing my Kanji's Lieutenant and give it Pro Black so I can block the Lysa, which is coming at me. In response, opponent C Corpse turns for some reason. So the Debaser abilities resolve, taking Coastline Marauders from opponent B, Alharu from me, and taking Prava of the Legion from opponent A. So the Alharu triggers go on the stack, targeting Lysa and one of the Rakshasa Debasers. But in response to that, opponent C plays Benevolent Blessing themselves on their Lysa, giving it protection from white, which means the Alharu trigger does not go through, at least on the Lysa. So it keeps it one power lower, which actually I think does matter in this. But that means that I can't block, since it has pro white, I can't block with my Kanji's Lieutenant, so I just have to block the Debaser coming at me and take 8 damage, gaining opponent C 8 life as well. Alright, so this is a pretty pivotal turn. I'm at 4 life. Opponent C still has their commander out, which means every spell I play, I lose 2 life. So I use my 1 spell to play to recast my Rayav, going to 2. I figure this has to I can't survive another round with Lysa on the battlefield at all, so I've just got to go for it here, even though I am just straight dead to opponent A if they decide to kill me. With the Rayav and Kanji's Lieutenant trigger, it goes up to a 9 power double striker. With opponent C at 17, I do take them out of the game there, and just hope that I live another turn. So after I take out opponent C, I'd play Humble Defector, but I do have to discard the hand size. And I figure the best bet is to just discard my second Kanji's Lieutenant and a land. It's coming down to the wire here, and I think that the Encore trigger is actually going to benefit me a lot more than just playing out a Kanji's Lieutenant. So I'm completely at the mercy of opponent A here, and we'll see if they think that my deed was worthy enough to grant me an extra turn. So opponent A is going to run out Thalas, Reverent Medium, which says at the beginning of each end step, you create X 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of tokens you've created this turn. And then they're going to use Tevesh Zot to create 2/0/1 tokens, and then Encore, creating 2 more tokens. And they decide to let me live a turn, because I took one for the team and left myself vulnerable to take out opponent C for everyone else. And they send their creatures over at opponent B, dropping them to 9. And then when each of those Encore tokens die, they're going to leave behind a 1/1 green elf token as well, which is going to add extra tokens to Thalas's trigger there. So they end up getting 6 1/1 spirit tokens there. Okay, opponent B's turn. They equip up their Rav and play makeshift munitions. And with me at 2 life, they basically have my life in their hand. They can just pay 2, sacrifice 2 equipment, and I die. So that's pretty awkward. So I agree to attack the opponent A with everything. They attack opponent A with their Rav, and opponent A just soaks as much damage with tokens as possible and goes down to 17. Alright, probably my last turn here. I exile Fathom Fleet Swordjack. Isn't going to help me out of this situation. Then I draw Kediss, Emberclaw Familiar, which if anyone watched my draft video, they know that this was actually my first pick, so drawing it on the last turn of the last game is kind of poetic. After some deliberation and counting up my mana and whatnot, I have a second Court Street Denizen in hand that I'm going to play first. I'm going to tap down Thalise with that. But now every white creature I play, I get to tap 2 creatures. So I encore my Kanji's Lieutenant, giving me 2 white creatures, giving me 4 taps, letting me tap down 4 spirits. And then I'm going to play 9th Bridge Patrol, which lets me tap down the remaining 2 spirits, leaving opponent A completely defenseless. And I do still have a couple mana here, so I'm going to spend 1 of it to suit up my Rav, so that when he attacks, he gets double strike. And I'm gonna play Kediss. And so Kediss says when one of my commanders deals damage to an opponent, it deals damage to all opponents, which means now opponent B basically has a choice who to lose to. They can kill me and then lose to opponent A when they swing next turn, or let damage happen and lose to me this turn. Kind of a rock and a hard place. And I would say they picked the classy move and just let damage happen and let me take out both opponents at once with the Kediss, and allowing my draft to come full circle. Also, it's worth noting that I dealt lethal damage to all 3 opponents in that game, so I felt pretty good about that one. That was definitely the best game out of the 3. Definitely the most drama. A lot of big, splashy, swingy plays. A lot of interaction between opponents. And yeah, everyone was a great sport, so it was a lot of fun. Alright, well, if you made it this far, thank you for watching again. Please remember to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Firelord_Appa over there. I make jokes sometimes and post whenever I make a new video. So let me know what you think of Commander Legends. Overall, I think it's a pretty fun format, and the games take a long time, but they're still fun overall. Alright, and that's it. So, bye.